Okay, it's just turned 7 o'clock in Australia. Welcome to Melbourne. For those who are joining from overseas, I'm going to be covering Deathchase today. And Deathchase is the classic game from 1983, which I do remember as being the 16K game, but I see different references to it, but I'm really sure it's a 16K game. It is an incredible game. I've lost many hours to this game, and even the sound of that startup is like brings back a lot of memories. This was also listed as the #1 game ever written for the Spectrum, and we're going to have a quick playthrough to determine and just show you what the original game was like, how it played, and the things that made it special. So it's funny that this was written for a 16K Spectrum that ran on a very Z80 processor, and it's now running on a laptop with a 17-inch screen at 1080p with a 1070 GTX NVIDIA graphics card. Wonders will never cease. So let's give this a quick go, and I'll run through it as we play through it. So I'm just going to go keyboard. There is basically this controls are really simple. It's accelerate. There is actually a decelerate, but I don't think anyone ever uses it. It's 1 for left, 0 for right, space for fire or anything on the bottom line for those that play on a Spectrum. Now, the idea is to take care of these motorbikes in front of you, the two, while avoiding the trees. It's a really simple concept. Now, as you may or may not notice, there's very sparse amount of trees, but overall the thing that makes this game kind of interesting is it's not 3D. I mean, it looks it, but it's not what we would call a 3D environment as written in modern gaming engines, for example. So it literally is the things coming towards you. There's no persistence in the world. There's just this approach of kind of left and right, and the bikes are always somewhere in front of you, because it's just actually, a kind of 2D plane with the things coming towards you. But ironically, it's the fact that it's not a proper 3D game which probably gives it its real playability that's been missed over the years as people have remade them. So you can only fire when you're going full speed, and you can only shoot them when the bikes are within range, which you can see at the bottom with the flashing brackets. There's also a day and night cycle for every level, and as you get through the levels you will see automatically that the trees will increase as you go through. So the game gets a lot difficult, but the thing that I really always liked about this game was the hitting the tree. Well, not when I was playing it, but the way you hit the tree. It was really impactful. It had this great noise, and you were really close to it. And again, I think it's something, we'll come across it later when we're going through the remake, but something which actually has a big impact on the game itself. So this was the original. It was really good. I've never managed to track down the original author for this. I don't think it's appeared in any issues of Retro Gamer or any other websites like the Retro Hour podcast or anything, so I've got no idea where this person is or what they're doing. When I did the remake of Planet of Death recently, I did find the author for that and got the permission and stuff to remake it. I haven't been as worried about this because, in essence, this game I'm going to show you was only ever built and developed for PAX 2018 as a kind of personal challenge. So it's never been released. I don't think it ever will be released. So I just thought I'd create this video here so there'd be some kind of record of it, because the only people that have seen this game thus far are people who came to PAX in 2018 over that long weekend. So this is the remake, the look of it. The main character is shown here. This lady on the bike is the main character. There is a bit of a backstory to this where the bike you're riding is older and crappier, therefore it's rusty looking. It's got lots of smoke and particles coming at the back, which I'm really quite proud of the effect there, by the way. Whereas the bikes you race against are much more modern. They're much more maneuverable, but they're just not as quick. So this is the thing, there's 4 levels in this game. It is an incredibly hard game. It hasn't been overly balanced due to its development, and we're going to have a look at this on the Xbox controller. Now, as I say, this game was originally written for VR, so there's a lot of aspects to this which are reflecting this, but we'll go through that as we play through it. So let's have a quick look at this game and see how we go. So here we go. The music, we'll come to later, is excellent, and I'm very fond of it, and it was written by a friend of work, But what we've got here is your bike. Now the reason the bike takes up such a massive part in this game is not just because it's similar to the original, but because when you're playing in VR you really need something to focus on to avoid motion sickness. So that's really quite important there. Okay, now we can see a bike in front of us. Now we have got a similar kind of forest to the original. Now you'll notice that the ground isn't actually particularly flat. We'll come back to that later. That's a little extra I added in too. The ground, when you had a completely flat ground, it looked completely fake. And I just wanted something that would give it a little bit of, I don't know, texture to the ground. Oh, nice. So, and of course you got your day and your night patrol. So let's take a pause here for a second and I'll run through some of the things before we start it again. There's a day and a night cycle. The game was built for VR, so the landscape does go up and down. You can see it much better in the night view with the bike, the light in front of you. But what it did was, this is going to be written for VR, and if you had something bouncing up and down the whole time, it would make you really, really sick. So this game is actually placed as a hover bike. So you rise to a certain level above the ground, and then you float across it. Now when you reach a ridge, you will fall back down to the ground again on top of that, but there's a kind of slow and gradual push, so you lift up gradually over the ground and you drop down gradually as well. So overall you've got a textured ground, but you've got a very smooth look to it, and that's in order to, because it was written specifically for VR. So yeah, now the speed of this bike is very, very fast for this game. Now it's got, you can see the 900 in the top of the screen. This UI is actually a lot different in this game than it is for the VR version. They don't work together well. So in essence the bike is moving 900 units per second, which is about 900 meters per second in essence in the game engine. This was all written in Unity. Now one of the biggest things we came across when I was developing this was that the engine would just break apart after a while, and I mean that seriously. The whole, after you played this for a few minutes running at full speed across a generated landscape, which we'll get to later, the whole screen just started shaking and moving, the pixels would split apart and it'd become an absolute mess. And this was one of the things I had to go to the preview at Federation Square with, because PAX had a preview tent in Federation Square, and the version I had for that time had this flaw with the shaking in the screen. Now Unity didn't really come back to me with any solution. They told me it was fixing a particular version, it really wasn't, blah 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 blah. So what I had to do was rewrite the game between October and November to make sure that shuddering didn't happen. So what happens in this game is the landscape's generated around the bike, but the landscape also moves around the bike. The bike is more or less stationary in this game, and the landscape moves around it, but that means everything has to move around the bike. And because this is a VR game, it has to reach 90 Hertz, otherwise you get that kind of motion sickness. So a minimum 90 Hertz, and it's really kind of slowed it down, and it was a real problem to rewrite this entire game, refactor the entire game in a month for the final show, but it did get there, and there was a couple of tricks to it. The landscape itself is generated because you're going so fast across this landscape. You cannot just have a pre-generated landscape and just ride across it. So what this does is it creates a bunch of tiles on a 9x9 around you, and it creates the tiles as it needs to in front of the player, and so you've always got this block around you which gets moved on, which is excellent. And it kind of, so as soon as you reach the end of one tile, the entire map shifts back one tile, and so you get that kind of smooth motion. But the tricky thing in essence was also getting, you had to remember that all the mines, all the missiles, everything had to move when the whole map moves. So it was a really interesting challenge, and it was one that was kind of really good fun to do in some respects, because the landscape itself is generated, because you can't just create a pre-rendered one for this. So the landscape was generated as you needed it, but you also needed it to be completely seamless. So each of those tiles crossing had the same hills going across it, and it all matched. And that was a really interesting kind of procedural algorithm, because every level in this game is actually consistent and persistent. So when you go back on yourself, all the trees are in exactly the same place as it should be when you went past them the first time. And the reason for that was that later versions of the game were meant to have static objects in it, and I wanted to make sure that this was part of the game, so it was the way it was written. So yeah, and while I tried my best to make sure everything was completely as random as possible in the procedural generation, there was still some patterns that came out of the algorithms that were used. So, you know, especially this will come up in level 2, and we'll see this happen, and there's still occasionally patterns. So yeah, we'll get back to that in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a play of the game and kind of talk through the controls as we go through. So let's give this a go. Now we can see a bike in front. Now if you've ever ridden a motorbike, what I've tried to do was keep this as intuitive as possible, but also work as a real bike would. So what happens is when you're not going at any speed at all, your bike turns, but as you accelerate, you turn less and you sweep to the left and right more. And this is pretty much what a real bike will do. And also it means that when you're going full speed, you can track behind another hover bike, and then you get the feel of playing the original game. So you're not turning here, you're actually swinging you're actually shifting to the left and right, but not actually turning the angle away from the bike. So it allows you to follow behind the bike and really just stick on its tail. I'll come back to that in a minute. And that allows it to have the feel for the original game, where you can just get behind a bike and you can really and then you can really trace it. Yeah, that's the explosion. I'm really happy with that. When people were playing it, especially in VR, it created a real reaction, just having that immediacy of having the tree right in front of you, the explosion and the sound thereof. So in order to maneuver properly, there's also in this game a high speed turn button. So you can move left and right like this and stay behind, but if you need to, you can hold down the high speed button and you will actually turn. Now, it's a lot more difficult to do that because you're dealing with two different movements. But yeah, it allows you to have this kind of best of both worlds control, where you can stick behind the bike and play it as twitch control without worrying about turning every 2 seconds. Now, as in the original game, you can only fire when you're going at full speed, or more or less. So when you see the number turn red at the top, that means that you can fire. Now, one of the issues with creating a game in a real proper 3D environment was that when you created the bikes and they headed off in a random direction, they could be going in opposite directions. So by the time you track down and finish up, oh, there we go, nice. Oh, yes. Yay, bugs. Okay, this is level 2, so this one is a lot denser, and perhaps, to be honest, a little too dense, because it is really hard to play through. Oh, yeah, thus spake Zarathustra. So yeah, so the idea is that you can maneuver your bike left and right, keeping track of the bikes in front of you. But one of the things I also realized was the bikes are not just there to be shot, they should have some kind of defense there. So if the bike detects you behind it, it can drop a mine, and the mine's got a random distance before it explodes. So you know, it can roll underneath you, it can explode beside you, but it makes it a lot more thrilling, basically. So with the controls and the way it hopefully makes the game a lot more intuitive. But the interesting thing is that once in a while the bike can drop a bomb and blow itself up. And to be honest, I could have fixed it so it never did that, but I quite like it because it's such a hard game that it's well worth just having that little get out of jail free card. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate the compliment. So, hoping not talking too much, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and play a session through, and we'll come back to some of the other aspects that came up with the game development. So once again, okay, let's go through it now. Just while we're playing, oh dear, while we're playing this, it might be worth paying attention to the top HUD, because it's not only got the speed on there, it's got how far away it is to the closest enemy, and also the distance to destination. Now the distance to destination was in order to allow the bikes to be somewhat near you, rather than just heading off. Oh, that was rather good. I'm rather happy with that. Rather than just heading off, what I decided was that, what I decided was that the bike should be heading towards a destination. So no matter what direction they head off in initially, and no matter how far away they are from each other, they will both congregate towards each other as you get closer to the exit. So the upshot is that basically when you shoot one bike, the other one will be close by. Because otherwise, when I first started running it, you would chase down a bike, and the further you took to chase down that one bike, come on, nice. The further it took to chase down that bike, the further you'd have to go back to chase down the other one, and it just became a little boring. So by adding this exit, which is a massive shimmering dome, which is 240 kilometers away at the moment, if the bikes reach that, then it's literally game over. There's no lives lost or whatever, but it gives an opportunity for the bikes to go towards the same direction, but still drive towards something, which makes it a lot more interesting. So yeah. I'm going to try that without talking, see if I can do any better. Just a point, there is a very slow firing rate, which did get brought up a few times at PAX. The idea was to make, you couldn't just spray it with bullets or it'd be a little unchallenging. Oh, we're getting close! Oh, bugger. Oh, hello. I am slowing down. My bike's a lot faster than theirs, so I can overtake them, and I can also ram them as well. Oh! And for the eagle-eyed, it's actually robots that are riding the enemy bikes in this one. There it is in the distance. God. Oh! Score! The unusual thing is, it's like I'm really happy with the third level in this game, but it's really hard to get to. Now, because the difficulty of this was quite high, there was a couple of reasons I was okay with that. Was it allowed people to get to and from the booth at PAX quite quickly, which was good, but it also allowed me to produce a bunch of badges with I Survived the Night and Deathchase, which was given to people during the weekend when they actually got through level 1. And I did give away a few of the badges, which was a good feeling. But yeah, it is quite tricky, but I'm reasonably, I think the second level could be a little easier, to be honest. It's just way too dense, but you know. The second level also introduces the pass-through. It's got bushes which you can actually ride through, and are just meant to distract you from seeing the bike in the distance. Now in the night levels, in the night levels, the trees are actually much closer when they become visible than they are during the day. So, and that was a kind of tricky balance to kind of, you know, work out what that distance should be. Okay, now this is an example of a pattern. in the trees because you can see the corridors that I'm riding through. And they really shouldn't be there, but they don't exactly make the game more difficult. Oh, that was so good! Go me! That may have been more luck than judgment, but damn it, I'll take it. So you can see sometimes you've got the bushes you can ride through. Every level has got the option of having hard impact stuff, like you'll see in the third level, and the fourth especially. And stuff you can pass through as well to kind of add that extra, you know, make the levels a bit more interesting. Oh! Ouch. Interestingly, the high score listed on this game, it was done at PAX. It's 171,000 and we've never reached it. So yeah, okay, just to go through a bit more of the game, what I'm going to do is I did introduce the options of easy mode, excellent choice, destination on the radar, as I talked about with the bikes heading towards the destination. You can show that destination on the radar as well, and you can do control after firing, which means that when you're moving left and right like in the original game, you can control the missile. But to be honest, I don't like it, so we're not going to do that. But we are going to switch on easy mode because I'm a bit of a wimp. Okay, now I just want to say, initially this game was written using the physics engine of Unity, but it was all stripped out because the physics engine allows you to create a lot of chaos in physics. Like you can drop a box and shoot a wall and all the other boxes will go where they may, but it makes it very difficult to write a controlled game. And it's one of my pet peeves with physics engines, well, just to go on a tangent, is that you can say, okay, apply this force and then do everything around it, but you can't substitute any of the values in there to say, okay, how much force do I need to make this distance? How much force would I need over this time in order to do this? So you can't swap around the coefficients, and for the life of me, I can't understand why an engine doesn't do that. I can see no reason why it doesn't, but it doesn't, so whatever. So all the physics were stripped out, so all the stuff like the electrical bolts hitting off the trees and firing off is just all calculated on the sly. But that makes me kind of happier because games didn't used to have physics engines. They were only a very, very recent initial thing, so yeah. And hopefully what will come across is the impact when you hit a tree with the noise and the sound, it kind of works really well, and especially in VR, it's hard to say. Oh, thanks, Chris. You can thank Carl for that, and I'll get on to that later. But oh, lost my thread. Yeah, when you're playing this in VR, when you hit that tree, it's really cool. It doesn't come across very well on this kind of YouTubey thing, but also because I built the controller to be the shape of a bike, and the idea was that you sit on the controller and you move it left and right in order, and it worked. So you could sit in the VR, the fire button and the accelerator was on your foot, fire button, high speed turn, it was all there. But unfortunately it got broken at PAX, and someone really gave it some welly, and it broke the bottom of all the supports. It still kind of worked, but it was a little bit too wobbly. So yeah, bugger. Okay, so switched on to easy mode. What I'm going to do now is talk about the biggest challenge of the code in a second. Now the blue dot on the radar, which you may or may not see on the stream, is the destination. Oh, hello. Okay, let's see on easy mode if I can get to level 3. Oh, hello! Because chances are if I can get to level 3, I can get to level 4. Yeah, the music is excellent, and I'll talk about that. It was written by Carl, who did this phenomenal job. Oh, come on. Now, of course, the bikes don't just head directly for the destination. They do have this kind of choice where they actually turn towards it, and they're also going left and right to avoid the trees, which we'll get onto shortly. Come on. Score! Oh, and by the way, the money is still the overall score. Come on. I do like how the terrain looks at night better than I do during the day. You can see the disparity between the different colouring. Yes! The radar also worked pretty well in this game too, where it should start coming towards away from the edge of the disc at the point where you can start seeing the bike. So. Oh, hello. The mines also appear on the radar as well. Come on. Damn it. Yeah, there is a small bug, whereas if you do a suicide run on the main thing, it ends the level before it takes the lives off. What the hell, I wrote it, I can take advantage of those. Now this level's a bit sparser now, fortunately, because it's on easy mode. So there might be a chance of me actually finishing it, or not. It's also the little things sometimes when you're writing a game, like when you die, where the bike gets positioned so you're not just facing the tree but actually sitting to the side of it so you can just immediately kick off again. Oh, nice! There's also a different textured surface to this ground. It's a little bit too patterny, but you know, it was written in a few months. What do you want? Oh shit! Now, at the bottom of the screen when you get to a new level, it tells you the name of the place you're in. I think the first one's called Talwyn. Basically because the trees are really tall. And it sounded cool. Well, bouncing... Yes! And this one's called Europa. And it tells you the distance to the destination as well, because in later levels, they're a lot sparser. Jeez, this is hard. But the distance is a lot closer. Now in really tight levels it's much easier to slow down and turn than it is to do a high speed turn like that. I would have loved to have had volumetric lighting for this. Yes! But it didn't really have the coding capacity to do it, and it's not really a thing in Unity. Holy sugar. Come on. Oh! Damn it. I still like the particles floating off. It's the small things that make me happy. Oh! Wow! Now, this is a level. There's only 75 kilometers to the exit, so you have a very limited time to take them out. But there is a lot less. There are a lot less trees, and I'm trying to keep the theme of these levels by having like a lava level with you know, nothing but dead trees on it. Come on. Oh yes! Oh my god, I just got the high score. There's also small bushes in this one too, and the legs of the tree stick out on some of them. But damn, I do like that texture. Oh, that yeah, thanks Chris, it is pretty intense. Come on. This is also a lot flatter than the other, like Europa is. Oh! No, no, no! Damn it! Okay, so that's level 3 anyway, and I didn't spot the name. Oh my God, high score! Go me. Yeah. Okay. Now the biggest thing that took the time with this game was the pathfinding for the enemy bikes, because they're actually maneuvering around the trees towards a destination at a very high speed, and it took a long time to get the pathfinding right. And in the end, I created a kind of a binary path system, which dictated the distance that you could move within one tile to the left or right, and then from that speed. But what it did was any pathways, because it formed basically a triangular matrix of paths, and any paths that had a tree in it got excluded, and any path excluded removed all the paths leading to that path for which there was no other alternatives, and therefore it kind of built up at very high speed a pathway through the trees quite far ahead. So yeah, it was really hard for me personally. I remember I was doing a hackathon where I was there as a kind of mentor, and I was there on one of the whiteboards just drawing lines upon lines and working at the maximum distance you can move forward, the amount you can move left or right, and all that kind of stuff. So it was yeah, it was quite intense. It was probably the most difficult thing, and ironically, when I was presenting this at PAX, had they just gone through the trees, I don't think anyone would have noticed. But the idea was that the bikes had the same things that you had to navigate, so that the AI worked out the same navigation as you had to when you were going through it. So, and I think that made it a lot fairer, and it also kept the bikes moving quite well. So yeah, and what I also want to mention is, just lastly, is the music. The music was written by Carl Bell at work, who I asked to see if he could come up with something for this really rapid game, and he came up with this music that you're hearing now. And it's he said he was really influenced by funk at the time, and he's got this really funky drums driven soundtrack which just drives the game forward, and you know, I was really lucky to get it, and I'm really proud that I was able to hear it so loud at PAX, and it works so well with the game. So yeah, that's kind of something I'm quite happy about. So as a final thing, you might notice that some of the fonts are blinking darker and lighter. The idea is to give that effect of having a kind of dodgy old machine. In the VR version, it's done like a kind of visor when you're playing the game in front of you, that's kind of got this kind of flickery view over the game, so you can kind of get that feel for riding an old bike. So yeah, that's the game in essence. And a shout out quickly to Amy as well, Amy Holman, who designed the logos and the badges that were all for, because my initial attempts were, to be brutally honest, shocking, and she really kind of sorted it out and made these badges really kind of, you know, nice to have. So I'm going to give this, my voice has been going for a long time now, I even made notes, and I'm going to try and get through to the 4th level, because I cannot for all life of me remember what it's even called or what the theme of that level is, so I'd really like to kind of, you know, revisit it. Oh yes, it's the small things as well, like that electrical explosion you see. When I first did it in the game, you couldn't really see it because you're moving forward so quickly. The explosion always happened behind you, so the actual explosion moves forward at half the speed of the bike at the point you destroy it. Come on. Okay. Yes! If anyone's got any questions about it, by the way, feel free to drop them into the chat. Oh! We have a bomb, a self-detonate there. Now the eagle eyes amongst you might have noticed that every single tree is in fact the same model. In order to cut down the amount of memory usage and the amount of trees... Oh, yeah. The amount of trees used, it uses something called GPU instancing in the card, which allows you to, you know, use the graphics card's memory itself to draw so many instances of something. But what it does is it rotates it, it lifts it up and down, it scales it in order to give as much variance to one model as one can possibly get. Oh! Didn't get lucky that time. Oh yeah. Whoops. There it is. Oh! So good. Sorry, I know it's my own game, but it's quite good fun. Oh! There's a few other interesting little bits and pieces, like when you get blown up, the other bikes will actually stop and then kick off again. Otherwise, because they accelerate so quickly, they're like kilometers ahead of you by the time you get up to speed. Nice. Now, of course, I am, at the moment, because that bike's riding towards the destination, I'm riding towards the bike, so it's basically a game of chicken at the moment. Oh, there we go. Wow, that's a lot of space. Damn it. Oh! I didn't realise I'd lost so many lives. For some reason I keep getting calls from the UK. Let's try this again. I really am determined to oh, that was close. To see the 4th level if I can. Oh, he just blew himself up. I love riding through the electrical explosions. It makes me very happy. There are a lot of particle effects in the game, which I'm quite happy with. Did the job for me. It is worth saying that if you nudge up against a tree going very slowly, you just bounce off it. But most of the time you'll be going very quickly. Oh yes! that's a little unfair. He's a better shot than I am. Come on. Oh, that was a goodie. See ya. Oh, well, the bomb gods are being smiling on me for this session. Come on. Oh! Okay, it's called Haraka Kifo. How the hell did I come up with that name? Just, I know, keep talking. Oh, that was ridiculous. On different levels, like this one's a lot smoother. There's still hills, but they're a lot longer. So there's a kind of smoothing algorithm. So things like the second level are quite hilly in some respects, but this one with shorter hills. This one's got much longer. Oh, now that was a shot. Okay. Okay. Come on. Oh, damn it. See, I think one of the things about when you're actually writing these games, you tend to test them on a level by level basis, because I have made it through all the levels, but generally you kind of set them up and you go through them one at a time rather than playing from the beginning. So yeah, one of the effects I would love to have got but I couldn't work out was getting the hands on the grips as you're riding forward. I just couldn't work out how to, because I'm not very good at modelling basically. I couldn't work out how to get the body pretty much transparent or far enough back from a person wearing a VR headset, because remember they can move backwards and forwards and left and right and keep the hands on the handlebars. So yeah, I guess more time maybe would have been allowed me to do it, but given what I know, I never managed to get the hands on the handlebars, which is something I would very much like to have done. Okay, let's go Talwyn. Although most of the time I'm firing forward, it took quite a while to get the right angles for when you're firing your bike and turning, or like where does a bolt go while you're turning in a certain direction. Because it didn't have to be right, it had to feel right, and I think that's the thing about that. Okay, is a little bit of a cheat. to have done with this game is added power-ups. So you could have like faster fire, or a boost, or slow down the enemies, or stuff like that that you pick up as you run through. But the trouble is, I think because of this was all written within a number of months, and especially the last couple of months of development was really fraught, because I was still running a full-time job and trying to write this game in time for a show that was kicking off with an absolute deadline. So, and I think it pretty much burnt me out, to be honest. The whole development process of this game. Oh, that was unnecessary. Come on. Come on. I managed to make it through all the levels of Train Controller for that playthrough. I'm really keen on doing the same here. Nice. Okay. I've only got one life left, so I think that adds to the stress. I think one of the highlights of the PAX weekend, there was a couple. One was a younger kid was there with his dad, and he just kept coming back to play it over the whole day he was there, and that was really quite cool. And the other was a couple of a biker couple, or at least a couple that rode motorbikes, who really enjoyed the feel of the controls, and that made a huge accolade to get that kind of feedback from someone who rides a motorbike, that it felt kind of good to the way it maneuvered. But it was, by all intents and purposes, a bloody exhausting weekend. Blow yourself up, now's the time. Yes! Wow, I haven't seen this for quite a while. Okay, facing the wrong way. So nervous. Come on, we can do this. Here you are. What the hell? He just blew himself up. Come on, one to go. Oh, you can see the stumps in the ground a lot more clearly at night. Oh, what the? They blew themselves. Okay, we're in Ballsec. 100 kilometers, that's not very far. Okay, so this was the, I remember this one. This was a fight created as a final level, so it's really bumpy and it's really dense, because this is the easy level. And one thing I found on this one is I didn't get the... Oh! Anyway, we saw it. So I'm really happy about that. It's been a long time. I don't think I've seen that level since I was testing the game to begin with, so We saw all 4 levels, so that was the conceit of this playthrough. Even though you only saw it briefly, I'm very happy to have seen it, and now it's kind of there because this game has never been released. It's very unlikely to get released anywhere. It's just something I wrote for a personal challenge to see if I could demonstrate a game written from scratch at PAX for, you know, literally thousands of people to have a go at. And it was an incredible experience. The game went really, really well. The feedback was really, really positive. So it's good. So this is Deathchase, the remake of the 1983 classic. It was written to have the feel of the original game more than anything else, and I think, and I'd like to think, that this has been accomplished with the control mechanisms that have been built into a proper 3D environment to give you the same feel as the game had on the ZX Spectrum, with the twitch controls later on, the need for fast reactions, and the overall navigation of the forest to get to the enemy bikes and destroy them. So, and a new high score in the process, which is good. So yeah, that's the game. As a small anecdote, I realised on the first preview at PAX on the night before the game started, the weekend started, the score was wrong. So I actually had to go into the source code on the machine and update it during PAX basically to get the score working properly. So there we go. That's Deathchase. I hope you enjoyed it. Any comments, please feel free to leave them below. If there's any other aspects of it you're interested in or would like to know or demonstrated, feel free to give me a drop and be glad to help. So yeah, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know, we'll try something else soon maybe. Thanks again. Bye.